Today we'll talk about how the U.S. intervened in Nicaragua, even though they needed no help. Nicaragua was advancing by themselves, but the U.S. claimed they were not capable of self-rule. The U.S. affects our lives, and we should be aware of their involvement in foreign affairs. I'm not an expert in foreign affairs, but I have researched this topic for history and discussed it with many individuals in my Air Force ROTC class. People don't ask why the U.S. intervenes or about the outcomes. I will talk about U.S.'s involvement in Nicaragua, the placement of the Panama Canal, and the uniting of Central America, as well as the overthrow of President Zayla of Nicaragua. First, I'll talk about what initiated the U.S. to intervene in Nicaragua, which was the building of the canal. Zayla was advancing the economy with plans to build the interoceanic canal to put Nicaragua on the world stage. He was confident in his plan, but the U.S. saw no benefit. The U.S. devised a scheme to overthrow the idea of building the canal across Nicaragua. They wanted to build it in Panama. So they devised a scheme that Nicaragua was too dangerous due to volcano activity, which was not true. So they were successful, and the canal was being planned to be built in Panama. But Panama was controlled by Colombia at the time, and they would not give the land to the U.S. So again, the U.S. devised a plan that they wanted to tell the Panamanians that they needed to win independence from Colombia. And sure enough, the Panamanians agreed. So when this happened, the U.S. didn't give Panamanians their independence. Instead, they moved into Panama and started building the canal. The decisions on whether the U.S. was right or wrong differs for everyone in the U.S., but it indirectly affects all of us. I just talked about what started this foreign affair. Now we'll be talking about the uniting of Central America. President Zayla aimed to unite the Central Powers to strengthen the economy, but it was not successful. This plan angered the U.S. It was ineffective either way, politically and military-wise. Zayla, with the little success that he had, ended up pushing the British out of the ports. But the U.S. moved in with a promise that they would construct a railroad and plant 2 trees for every one that they cut down. In exchange, they would be able to mine and log in Nicaragua. They did not keep this promise. Again, Knox was angered because the Nicaraguans decided to borrow 1.25 million pounds from Europe to build a railroad, and that threatened the U.S.'s power over Nicaragua. This ended up starting a rumor that Nicaragua was either working with Japan or Europe to build another canal. This information was found in a book called The Overthrow by Stephen Kinzer. As a general population, you get to decide whether you believe the U.S. had a right to be angered by the money being borrowed, or if Nicaragua had the right to advance how they saw fit. Now I have discussed how the U.S. got involved in Nicaraguan affairs and how the U.S. felt that the Central Powers were uniting and pushing them out of control. Now I will discuss what ultimately led to the overthrow. The U.S. yearned to overthrow President Zayla, but had retrieved no viable evidence to do so. Knox attacked Zayla politically, saying going into Nicaragua and finding evidence to bring back to the U.S. to make him look bad. In October 1909, General Estrada from the U.S. claimed presidency, financially backed by the U.S. They sent a militia in, but 2 individuals were caught and confessed to placing mines in the river to blow up a naval vessel. Zayla decided to sentence these soldiers to death by a firing squad. Zayla was then labeled as a war criminal because of this and pushed out of office, with the Knox note that said they wouldn't rest until he was gone. After his farewell speech to Nicaragua, the president sailed away into exile. According to the article, Nicaragua, the first real American coup by Valdez, the last words of President Zayla was that he was happy to resign if it meant stopping the chaos in Central America. There are many U.S. coups over the years, and setups like these are scenarios planned to overthrow other nations' leaders. Some of these are for the good of the people, and some of these are for power. In conclusion, you all have learned about the involvement of U.S. in Nicaragua. The involvement of the U.S. in Nicaragua caused Central America to eventually fall into chaos after losing a strong leader. The U.S. gained power over Nicaragua for a period which benefited them in multiple ways. The U.S. led to building of the canal in Panama, the uniting and then the separating of Central America, and the overthrow of the former President Zyla. The public doesn't read enough on these details of foreign affairs and how it involves other countries. But the interpretation is up to you after hearing results from this presentation and on social media. Facts are facts. Some can be seen as good and others as bad. But it's up to history to create them, but it's up to you to define them. Thank you.